Brr! My hand's freezing. This week on the Dirthead Shed, it's all about Jeeps. We got to work on the axles for Butter Jeep. I got to get those things done before the engine is all back together in it. And we're going to go check out my new project. You're going to dig this one. It's pretty cool. Oh, stay on the road. Welcome back into the Dirthead Shed. I'm Dave Chappelle, and this is my Jeep that I call Butter Jeep. It's a 94 Jeep Wrangler that we have started doing a LS swap on it. But today I want to do something a little different, and I want to dig into these axles. The last time I drove this, I drove it right into a puddle or a pond. I locked up the motor. It was underwater for quite a little bit. And I actually drained the rear axle when I was in Moab right after I did it, and there was a bunch of water in it. So I need to dig into these all the way, kind of repack bearings, make sure seals are good, make sure that I'm not going to have problems, because when I get this LS swap done and it fires up, all I'm going to want to do is drive it. I'm not going to want to go in and mess with the axles after that. So we're going to do that right now. We're going to tear into it. We're going to figure out what's good, what's bad, what needs to be replaced. So if you've never looked into a Dana 44 front axle or a Ford 9-inch rear, you're about to see the internal workings of them and how I'm going to go about making sure they're good to go for the next wheeling trip. All right, let's get busy. Where do I start? Let's start in the back. The rear axle in this thing is actually pretty trick. It's a fabricated housing from a company called Gear FX, which I think is no longer in business. I've got a nodular 9-inch third member from Yukon, and it's got like a competition ARB air locker. It's got 35 spline axles. It's got all this really cool stuff, and I just want to make sure that it's going to survive the next round. I also want to get in here and clean up some of this rusty metal on the links and stuff like that. It's been kind of neglected. So let's go ahead and dig out I've got a welding table that we'll just sort of drop this whole axle down onto and get it out of the truck. We'll start tearing into it, we'll clean it up, and we'll figure out what needs to be replaced and what doesn't. Hopefully it's all good. All right, the axle's out of the rig, and I've got it kind of rotated back so we can drain the oil. I remember right after I did dunk this thing in the pond, I did drain the oil. I don't remember if I put more back in or not. Oh, I did. I filled it back up. So that's a waste of good oil right there. It's all kind of part of the deal. If you do dumb stuff, sometimes it costs you a bunch of money. All right, we're going to drain this out, and then we'll pull the axle shafts, and then we're going to pull the third member. The last time I put this third member in, I used grease and a paper gasket, and I was told that was going to be great, and it immediately started leaking. So, oh man, I am like dying. Kind of got a cold. Well, I had a gnarly cold for the last few days. I'm kind of getting back in the shop now. All right, let's let that drain. I sure hope that this thing's good inside. Got a lot of money wrapped up in this thing for it to be junk. Before I start pulling everything apart, I want to at least get most of the sand and junk off of here. So I've got some brake clean and one of these reusable sprayers, and we'll start hosing this down. It's a strange third member, this one's not a Yukon. I had a Yukon third member in my early Bronco back in the day. All right, let's get this thing cleaned up best I can. That way when I'm taking this third member out, we don't get a whole bunch of sand and junk in the gear set. The paint is just falling off of this thing too, so we'll end up priming and painting this thing a little better this go around. Hopefully it lasts. This actually wasn't in here very long before I trashed it. I used copper crush washers behind all of the nuts on here. So I've got to kind of dig those out before I can drop the third member out of the housing. So these guys just kind of act like another little seal to help keep this thing tight and keep it from leaking. They're kind of one use only, so I'm gonna have to run back to Harbor Freight and get another one of those. They've got like a kit that has a bunch of these in it that's pretty cheap. Here we go. Come on. Do I have one left? I must have a crush washer that's stuck on here or something. No. It wants to go. It's very heavy. Come on. Okay, there we go. There we go. Oh, going to the ground with it. Oh. Sweet. It doesn't appear to be total junk. That was heavy. Oh, and this isn't all rusted out either. We're doing good. Check that out. I've got most of the paint and rust off of this thing. There's still spots like in here that I wasn't able to get. I was just using the cup brush on the grinder. And I got as much as I could, but I want to try some paint stripper to get the rest of this out of there. We'll see how it works. I'm gonna go ahead and set this thing down on this cardboard so we can make a mess on that and start brushing that stuff on, see if it works. I know the aircraft stripper is better, but they didn't have that at the hardware store, so we're trying the old basic regular brushable paint stripper. All right, let's see if this works. I went back and watched the video on this thing when I built the axle, and I actually used good paint and primer, pretty good. Used like duplicolor etch primer in a can and some satin black duplicolor engine enamel. But apparently I didn't want to play nice. All right. Let's let that soak, and maybe while I'm letting it soak, I'll read the instructions and see what I'm really supposed to be doing. Okay, that's been sitting on there like 10 minutes or so, and it's actually bubbling and doing its thing, and you can kind of push the paint around and it's coming off. So that's a total win. The paint stripper that I didn't really have a lot of faith in was totally strong enough to get rid of that old spray paint. I went through the instructions on it, and it said to kind of clean off the excess with mineral spirits, which is rad because I have 2 gallons of mineral spirits and I've never found anything that this stuff is good for. So I finally get to use some of it up, which is great. I'm gonna throw it in this spray bottle that used to be for degreaser, and hopefully we can clean that paint stripper and whatever paint residue and junk is left on there off with this, and then we can move on to the next step. Come on. Mineral spirits, do something. Come on, sprayer. Even the sprayer doesn't like mineral spirits. What the heck? All right, I'm kind of cleaning this thing up with the brake clean now. and it's really feeling like it's getting all the junk off and the residue from that paint stripper. It's coming clean now. Stoked that we're kind of bringing this thing back around. It's going to take quite a bit more cleaning just because I use so many of those random chemicals like the paint stripper on it. I'll kind of wipe this down, I'll let it dry for a while. I may even throw the heat lamp on it to see if it can kind of burn out some of the other chemicals. And then we'll just kind of play it by ear and see what we're going to end up doing as far as the new paint. All right, it is a super cold but very beautiful winter morning out here, and I was like, I gotta at least show you guys this new project I got, and I'm back. I've got the camera plugged in. It is super cold out here. It's probably like around 12 degrees this morning, and my batteries and my GoPro are acting weird. My air compressors are acting weird on the Nissan here, and it's just sort of one of those mornings. Maybe I'm meant to be in the shop. But first, I gotta show you guys this new project I picked up. It should be really fun. It is so bright out. This is great. It's been dark and gloomy and cloudy for too long. All right, enough of that. Let me show you what we're up to. Right now we're driving the old Nissan hardbody. This thing's doing good. Being a normal truck, sort of. It's super low and it's sort of uncomfortable, but it sure looks cool. So anyways, we're gonna head down to Matt's shop. We're gonna show you guys this new project. I think you'll be excited about it. I know I am. There it is. So good. Gotta drop this thing. Gotta show Matt. He hasn't seen it yet since it's been out of the shop. Try not to crunch it too hard on the rocks. Ugh. Big old crunchies. All right, let's go look at this thing. Here it is, my new pride and joy. I gotta show you this. This is a 97 Jeep TJ, and guess what? I'm getting invited to the Matt's Off-Road Recovery Offroad Games, and I'm taking this. It's like Cheap Jeep Challenge this year, so this one should meet all the criteria. Let's check it out. I got myself another Jeep, just what I needed, right? Because I'm so good at finishing the last one I've been working on. Check this out. I got myself a 97 Jeep TJ. This is actually the first TJ I've ever owned. And you'll notice that it's purple. You'll notice that it's got crummy just rollers on it. You'll notice it's missing fenders and it's chopped up. It's got no doors except for some doors that the previous owner started making. There's no windshield in it. This thing is stripped down, bare bones, base model, you name it. This is just sort of a crummy old Jeep that I was able to pick up for a song. I actually paid $1,800 for this thing. Some of you might think I'm crazy. Some of you might be like, dang, I can't believe you found a TJ for $1,800. Well, this year, 2025, Matt's Off-Road Recovery Off-Road Games, Matt's Off-Road Games, is going to be sort of a cheap Jeep challenge sort of theme. I know like in the years past they do wreckers and stuff like that, but this year I actually got invited sort of through Freiberger, who has since not been able to make it, so I'm kind of on my own. But I got invited to the Off-Road Games, and it was like a cheap Jeep or Jalopy Jeep challenge. So I figured I got to find something. Oh, there's rules to it. There's rules. And the rules are 33-inch tire max, and that's pretty easy. It's got to be on coil springs. It's got to be able to do like an 8+ rated trail, and it can't be more than $5,000. So I was thinking to myself, I was like, what is coil sprung? What will run 33s no problem, sort of in stock form, and what can I get for under $5,000? And it was basically like Land Rovers, which Colt is building one of those for this challenge over at Colt Builds It. You could get a Land Cruiser FJ80 or FZJ80, which are really cool, but they're overpriced in my opinion nowadays. Or you can get yourself a Jeep TJ. Or you can, you know, I think there were rules to where if you had a leaf sprung vehicle, you could link it and coil it and change some stuff up, but I kind of wanted to keep this one simple. So I scoured Marketplace, and this thing actually had been for sale locally to me for like a couple of months, and it wasn't selling. I think it was listed for $3,500, which is kind of pushing it on the price of what this thing's worth. But the guy was ready to get rid of it, and he was ready to let it go for a song. So I was able to pick it up for $1,800. And truthfully, I think it's perfect. I think this is the ringer for this competition. It's going to be low, it's going to be light. This thing's underpowered. It's a 4-cylinder, and it's an automatic. Those are two things in the Jeep world that kind of make it to where it was less desirable, I guess. Let me see if I can open the hood. You guys hang out down there for a second. Oh, there we go. Just go ahead and flip this all the way back. Here we go. That's the power plant. This thing has a 2.5 liter 4-cylinder. It's fuel injected. It's new enough that it should be OBD2. So I should be able to like check codes, and the electronics should be decent on it. And behind the little 4-cylinder, there's an automatic transmission. This one should be a, what is it? It's like a Chrysler 904 transmission. I believe this one is a, why am I flaking? It's a 32RH, I believe. So it's just a little basic 3-speed automatic. I forgot the keys, so I can't fire it up. When I did go and pick this thing up, just driving it onto the trailer, the tranny was slipping pretty hard. So I think we've got tranny work to do like immediately. We've also got a little bit of work to do in the suspension department. It's got some pretty hokey stuff like these spring spacers, the homemade spring spacers that are actually welded to the coil. That is definitely not cool. We've got some homebrew steering on it that is probably good enough, but I do want to go through and make sure that's right. It's going to need a winch on it. It might need a new paint job. It's missing fenders altogether, so I really am looking forward to building a set of fenders kind of the way we were doing them 15 years ago, shoot, maybe 20 years ago. We were always building our own front fenders for these Jeeps. So it should be pretty fun to like, I am freezing. I am absolutely freezing. It's like 13 degrees out here. I'm looking forward to building these fenders though. So we'll do sort of a cool tube fender, keep it kind of lightweight. I've got a windshield for it. I just need to get the right gasket. I've picked up a set of seats for it at the wrecking yard. We have all sorts of goodies in line for this thing. So I hope you guys dig it. I hope this wasn't too long and drawn out, but I am absolutely stoked. I've got a bunch of parts already ordered for it. I've got wheels and tires ordered. And if all goes well, we're going to be dragging this thing home in the next week so that I can get started on it. But first I got to get all that stuff done on Butter Jeep. It's kind of weird having two Jeeps. I'm not even really a Jeep guy, but apparently this year I am, because I got them stacked up like cordwood. All right, we're going to head back to the Dirthead Shed. And the little Nissan, check that out. Oh, I convinced my buddy Matt that he needs a lowrider too, mini truck. So he's got this sweet S15 GMC Sierra. The bed's obviously not cut and sitting all the way down, but man, it looks good. We're going to be like total mini truckin' bros here pretty soon. All right, heading back to the shop. All right, we're back in the shop, and check this out. It's time to finish this thing up. I got it really clean last night, and then I went over to Hot Rod Night, and after that, I was hanging out with my friend Scott, and he was like, you gotta try this stuff out. It's the best stuff I've used. And I think I'm gonna try it. I was going to paint this with the Acme or Finish One stuff that I shot the frame on the Nissan with, which is just an inexpensive single stage catalyzed paint. But I don't think I really have enough, and I really don't like the super glossy look of it. So I'm gonna go ahead and give this stuff a try. He says it's just something that he bought on Amazon years ago, and he's been using it a bunch, and he actually really likes it. So, all right, I'm gonna bust out just the last little cleaning bits on this, and we'll drop the third member back in, because I do want to paint it with the third member in. That way I don't have to mask all this, and I want to like make sure that third member is all cleaned and painted too. So let's get busy on it. I keep saying that, but it's time to get busy. The housing is all washed off with, I use this specialty reducer. Basically it's acetone. So I washed it all down with the acetone reducer. I put it in the spray bottle because it made it easier. And we're actually going to use a lube locker this time. This is a reusable gasket, just a little bit higher quality. You don't run any sort of RTV or sealant on these. And I've had good luck with these in the past, so I bought this lube locker for this thing a couple years ago, and should have used it before I did. We will find out if it is the end-all be-all. Third member going in. Hopefully I didn't forget anything major. Look at that, it just is wanting to drop on. I just got to get my fingers out of there. Dropped right on there. Awesome. All right, I am gonna grab those new copper washers that I got and some hardware, and we'll bolt that thing down. I ran over to Harbor Freight the other day and picked up copper washer assortment. This is by far the most convenient way I've ever found to get these. All right, check it out. The axle's like ready to go, but it's an hour later. I actually ran out to the freight company, and check this out. I got something exciting for that purple Jeep. Look at this. Got wheels and tires for that thing. Parts are rolling in. I've been ordering parts and pieces and stuff, and I was like, I gotta put good tires on this thing, so I got a set of Mickey Thompson MTZs. And these are a 33, 1050, 15, and a set of Mickey Thompson wheels. This is gonna be awesome. I'm gonna drag all this in, and then we can mount some up. That way they take up a little less room on the floor. Let's see how these things look. These are 15 by 8, and should be a really cool looking slot mag. Lightweight, good for a 4-cylinder. What? Those are sick. That's gonna be so cool. Keep this thing light, that's the name of the game. Those are so blingy, so bling for that little crummy Jeep. Those might be too nice. Nah, they're good. They're so good. All right, I wanna mount these things up. New tire day. I got one getting ready to get mounted up. I've got one that is already mounted and looking good. I've got to balance it still, but this is pretty dang cool. I love this tread design. I run these on Mas Grande in a 40-inch. So like the little 33 1050, it's a pretty neat looking setup. It's not super wide. It's on an 8-inch wide wheel. It all just kind of has the right proportions. The classic slot mag look can't be beat. All right, I'm gonna mount these guys up, balance them all. I'm gonna try and make this sort of nice, you know? I wanna be able to drive it down the road and not have them tires shaking and all that. So let me get these things knocked out, then we'll go spray some paint. Okay, we're back on the paint project, trying to get the rust preventative paint chassis saver antique satin black out of the can. It hardened so hard around the lid the last time it got used that I'm actually having to cut the lid off. And when I'm done with this, I'm gonna have to figure out how to transfer this into a different can, or just buy my buddy a new batch of it. But yeah, I was destroying this lid trying to get it off. And now we're gonna have to just open it up so it looks like Popeye was getting after some spinach. All right, here goes nothing. Hopefully this stuff is pretty good. It seems like if it's half as good as what the can makes it out to be, it should do a fine job. Alright. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of try and get a little bit of a light coat on it. Let it tack off while I go eat dinner, and then we'll come back and give it a heavy second coat. I've used other products similar to this before. Stuff like POR 15 and some chassis black from Sweet Patina. And typically on those types of paints, I don't like how hard they get. They like get overly hardened and they kind of chip and flake off. I'm hoping that maybe this doesn't have that same effect. I'm shooting it out of a pretty small like detail gun. Just a really inexpensive one. It's doing fine for this little project. This Jeep has been down and out too long. Down and out too long. You can tell there's still some spots where like I didn't get it totally clean enough. I really probably should have done a second wash with that reducer on this thing. There we go. Looking like a decent axle again. We'll let that tack up and then we'll come back out here and bury a whole bunch more on it. There we go. This thing's got paint on it. It's got basically 3 coats and it seems to have full coverage and looks pretty decent. It was flashed off and looking good. I actually ran to the Home Depot and I got an empty paint can so that I could transfer all that into here. Sorry, Scott, about your paint can, but I couldn't get that thing open. I tried. But there's like this much paint in here and it's still good to go. I think that was a pretty good, quick, like week in the shop, you know? We got the axle pulled out, confirmed that it's good, got it repainted, got a new project. I need to tear into that front axle, but like it has me less worried now that this one was so good. So I think that's it for this Dirthead Shed. Keep following along. There's gonna be a ton more on that purple Jeep. There's gonna be a ton more on the butter Jeep. I got some cool events coming up and some cool trips planned. So we'll see you guys next time. Peace out.